might pop in and join us, but we're going to get started on time so we can be done on time. So we have Grant and Joy, Rebecca, Laura, Nellie, and Michelle. And now Annie.
Hello.
Hi. We're just getting going. So we had a session last night. I had, I think, 5 students in the course last night. And they each had a turn, just giving a little overview of their PBL, what it is, what the driving question is, the basic product, and how it will be shared. And then after we all shared with them, we talked about how the semester went and suggestions for improvement or what was helpful or what was frustrating. Okay? So I will allow you to just pipe in who would like to just go first and share your PBL.
I'll go first.
All right.
Sorry, I have a cat in the way.
I have a cat, but not in the way yet.
My project is a Rube Goldberg machine unit.
Oh, yes. And what grade?
5th.
Okay.
So it's part of our simple machines. My driving question is, how can I use simple machines and understanding of forces and motion to simplify tasks? So it's 2 weeks, and each of the days that they're learning before they do their final Rube Goldberg machine, they're actually doing other experiments. So there's not a whole lot of sitting and listening in the unit, which is really cool.
Yes.
What was that?
I said yes.
Yeah, so most of the unit is based around them experimenting and understanding what makes machines work. So I'm really excited about it because I'm going to use it this year, and I like it. So it was fun to make.
Anybody want to ask a question or comment?
What kind of materials are you using for your Rube Goldberg?
They're allowed to bring. I made a list of things that'll be in there, but they're allowed to bring certain things from home, and then the rest of it they just get to kind of go free in the room and grab what they think will be useful. So it gets to be a big mess, but it's really cool because
my son a few years ago was into that, and anything goes. It's pretty cool what they can think and use.
Right, and we talk about being resourceful too. Like, you don't have. I mean, it looks like you don't have much around here, but you can use what you got to do pretty cool stuff. So, yeah.
And how long does your unit last?
2 weeks.
Okay.
The actual Rube Goldberg machine part is the 2nd week. So the first week they do all the experiments using different forces and learning about potential and kinetic energy, and then the last week they start their project on the Monday, and then they get the rest of the week to create it, write about it, and present it.
All right. What learning standards did you incorporate? What's up?
Let me look so that I don't get this wrong. These are learning goals. Can you remind me what that?
Yeah, what subject standards?
The what?
What subject besides science?
Oh, they have to write about it also. So they have to be able to explain it in words and do explain how the science behind it makes it work, and they have to be able to verbalize that.
So you brought in some language arts standards then?
Yes. Yep. I guess they use math. I mean, math and science are so similar. They use a lot of math because they have to collect data.
Mm-hmm. Good. How do they get to make their project public? How are they presenting at the end?
At the end, we last year when I did something a lot less involved than this with Rube Goldberg, we went and did a presentation in the gym during their specials time. So we invited the whole grade level to come and look at them, and it was pretty cool. So we'll do that again this year because it worked out really well. So they get a big audience.
Yeah, that's an important piece of a PBL, is that there's some public sharing, not just within their class.
Right, and we invite their families too.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Who would like to share next?
I can go next.
All right.
Ours was we're building a healing garden outside of our school. The school just completed a referendum in this fall, and so right in front of the high school office is pretty torn up because of the construction that was there. And so we are having students complete a self-similar pattern with blocks from a local store, and they have to find the square footage, create a pattern, make sure that it fits as many times as possible in that square footage, and then fill it in and try and have it be as cost efficient as possible.
And what grade level?
10th, it's a combination of 10th grade geometry, and about half to 3/4 of students are in also agricultural science landscaping. So the ag teacher has the prep period that I have geometry. So he's coming in, we're going to start it after break. He'll come into my geometry classroom and work with students. And then a lot of those students who are actually going to work on part of like edging it and putting the blocks in, but the rest of it's going to be done by a landscaping company. But it's kind of a combination of geometry and high school landscaping.
So it's very authentic because it's really going to happen.
It is, yes. It's going to hopefully be done by the end of June.
Wonderful. And who will they present to besides their classmates?
So it's going to be the pattern that they come up with in the design is going to be shown to administration, and the school board is actually the people that approve the final cost. So roughly in the project, they're given like what they'd like to spend, and students try and really keep that in there, but they present it in front of the high school principal, superintendent, and the 5 members of the school board.
Wonderful. And so they're competing to have their design chosen to be the one.
They are, yes.
Wonderful. They like that competition.
They do.
Any questions for Grant? Grant, within the unit, is there time for them to get feedback midstream and be able to do some revision?
Well, we've pretty much broken it down into like a kind of like a part by part. So like they start by finding like the correct square footage, and then to be able to move on, they have to show that to us, and then they create a self-similar pattern, and then they show that to us. They create a scale drawing, and then complete the scale drawing by placing their pattern in the correct square footage to show that they can complete or fit as many patterns as possible, and then fill in the rest with remaining like blocks so that they kind of set up step by step. Then they find the total cost and they complete an accurate scale drawing. So it kind of ties together with just the general area, surface area, standards for geometry, as well as similarity, and then basic rational number skills by just adding, subtracting fractions, multiplying, dividing. So we kind of go it part by part to really make sure that every student is successful, because the last thing we want is to have a group that doesn't have the correct square footage, isn't complete, that they present that in front of the school board.
Right. So they get some formative along the way then.
Yes, pretty much. We try and do it at least twice, or 2 to 3 times a week.
And how long will the whole project last?
Right now it's planned for 12 days, but since we've never done this before and we honestly don't
know.
Don't know. We really think that 12, 13 days will be enough, but we're really trying to have it done within 3 weeks.
Okay. Who's next?
I can go next. Mine is the school playground design. So the driving question is, how can you design a school playground that will meet the needs of all the students at our school? And I'm at elementary school right now, and I teach 3rd grade. So it will be, the primary focus is math standards, geometry, but there will also be writing. They'll be doing a persuasive writing piece at the end as part of their making it public. So the first few lessons, there will be some building background knowledge for the geometry, like the polygons that they'll be using, and being able to measure line segments and parallel, perpendicular, just things that will help them with the design of their playground. Then they will be spending some time conducting research, and they'll have to figure out the best way within their group to get to build knowledge about the current playground and issues that there may be. And then with the students that we have at our school, the wants that the students have or the needs that they may have, and figuring out, using that information then to design a playground that will meet all of those needs. So then they'll spend time with their group creating some type of a project of their choice that shows the design of their playground. And we'll be kind of meeting, they'll get the final rubric to preview in advance so they know what the expectations are. And then, so that will be the building background knowledge lessons will probably just be like a day each. And then the research and the planning will be about 5 days. And then they'll conclude with writing the persuasive essay. And they'll each individually write their own essay. So the planning part, the project part will be together as a group, and then the essay will be independently. And then the plan is to present it to the school principal. We've had a lot of construction done on our school, so we've had contractors in and out, so it'd be neat if there would be a contractor that would be involved, just for opinion's sake. Yeah.
What will you do with the essays then? Are they sent to somebody?
Well, so the essays they would present, or they would use as part of their presentation when they're presenting their project. The group members will individually be able to share why they think that their project best fits the criteria and the needs of the students.
And I know when you started planning this, you were looking at making sure that special needs students, that the playground met the needs of them as well.
Yeah, so that would be part of their research, making sure that they really hit the needs of all the students, not just the majority.
And how many standards did you pull in from which subjects?
Oh, there were a lot. The majority came from, or a good chunk I should say, came from math with geometry. And then there were actually quite a few ELA standards as well for the writing pieces and the research.
Mm-hmm. Any questions? Yours, much like Grant's, is very authentic because it's right there at their school. It's something they could actually see. Are you hoping that that playground would actually be built, or is it just sort of hypothetical?
It would be fun. I mean, we have definitely pieces of equipment that could be updated. So, and like I said, we've been doing a lot of different construction around our school. So it would be fun if it could be something that, I mean, just getting their ideas out, even if the full plan isn't used, it'd be fun.
And who would like to go next?
I can go. So I had a hard time coming up with something for first grade, but so I kind of did something a little bit different. My grade level partner and I have really expanded the last few years with like exercise and growth mindset and healthy lifestyles. And she came to me and said that she wanted to start an after school program that kind of followed those same steps. So I decided to use my PBL kind of brainstorming into this program. It's something that we both really do want to try to implement. Just for, I came up with Project Me, just for MEE as in mindset, exercise, and eating. And what we kind of thought was having kids come in and we can kind of go over like after school program with teaching them some basics on healthy choices and like having them cook different snacks by using like the home ec room and doing some movement and some journaling with different mindset activities. And this would be an after school program a couple days a week for about an hour, hour and a half. And after kind of going over each of these areas for a while, our thought was that each kids would kind of be broken into groups and they would have to create kind of like their own like journal that someone could purchase, or like a calendar, if you will, that someone could follow if they wanted to implement these steps. and it just had to incorporate some healthy lifestyle choices in it, and they can kind of make it on their own, and something that a kid can reasonably follow. I mean, obviously I'm not gonna make them like go out and like run like a 10K every day or anything like that. Elementary, like middle school age, and the projects would be something that, again, that they would have to present, and we thought that they could do it, like invite the community. And our school is really good at having the community events a couple times a quarter, or at conferences they can have some kind of presentation. They could present during one of our we have like Rebel rallies every month. They could go up and present to the entire elementary school. They could go to the school board and present. So it's kind of where our thoughts were with that project.
What age group are you going to be working with? It'd be multi-age.
We were kind of just thinking that it would be open to anyone who really wanted to do it on the elementary level. I mean, maybe even middle school or high school. We're kind of like, we wanted to do it this spring, but it's just, I have no life right now with my master's, so might have to wait till next fall. But I mean, it's something we both really want to do, and I guess just based on how many kids would want to do it. I mean, if only 5 kids wanted to do it, we wouldn't be limited, or you know what I mean, like, it'd be whoever age-wise. But I mean, obviously, if we had a lot of interest, we'd have to probably somewhat limit it unless we got more people willing to do it, because it would be an after-school activity.
Mm-hmm.
So I struggled to come up with something for first grade, so it's kind of why I had to reach out and do it this way. But it was kind of funny timing, because she came up to me pretty much the same time as this PBL project came up, and I thought it was a good fit. So.
Feedback from anyone? How does it incorporate the reflection piece where the students are asked to reflect on what they learn, and also the feedback and revision within the project?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What was that?
How are you building in reflection from the students on what they're learning and doing? And also, are there opportunities for them to provide feedback to each other and revise their final product?
Well, some thoughts that we were thinking about was that if they wanted to present, obviously they can, but then we thought that maybe it would be kind of fun if they did some kind of I guess I don't know, podcasting or blogging, where they can kind of reply to each other, or they could even have some kind of platform where maybe people around the school could have an opportunity to try it and respond back. I mean, I have that kind of, I just have kind of a bunch of ideas out there. I just don't really know what would be, I don't know, the best way, I guess. I mean, I feel like that's kind of part of the PBL process, is the kids would kind of be like, hey, how do I want this information to get put out there? Do I want it to get put out there via, I don't know, brochure? Do I want to do it via, my class Facebook page? Or,
Yep.
They can kind of choose that avenue.
Okay. Thoughts from anyone else? All right, who's next?
I can go. So I did mine on constructing a tiny house. It was actually one of the examples I ended up seeing on there after I'd kind of thought about doing it. And I did it in a resource room setting. I work with students with special needs. And so my main focus, as far as the standards and stuff go, are around the geometry area perimeter. We're focusing small. We're starting with area and perimeter of rectangles and squares. They need to get that down before we start talking about a lot of other shapes. And then I also added in here just the English language arts standard, just that more of the collaboration, communication, expressing their ideas clearly, things like that. I did not put any of the reading standards in here. I know that was something you had given me in feedback, but something that I went through with my plan is I actually wrote in there all the accommodations that my students receive in their IEPs. And part of the thing with my students who receive math support is we don't expect them necessarily to do the reading during math time. A lot of my students are very low in reading. And so anything math related is read to them. And so I put some of those accommodations and stuff in there just so you could kind of see what it kind of looks like on a daily basis, or what it kind of looks like for them in the classroom or math classroom and things like that. So their goal is to design the floor plan of a house. And then they have, so everybody's floor plan as far as size is going to look the same, but then they will work with a partner to kind of decide like how big the rooms are, and then what furniture pieces go in the rooms, and they get different options. So there's certain furniture pieces that are required, and then other ones that they can add in if they want. I try to give different options for different size, like countertops, different size sinks. If they wanted to do chairs rather than a couch. And so they kind of have some of that flexibility to decide what the design is going to look like. So the beginning of the plan is laid out more lesson-based. It's focused on that gradual release of information. A lot of the direct instruction, guided practice, independent practice for the first couple lessons, and then the project slowly gets introduced at the beginning with that. And so as a team, they're going to be required to work together to figure out where all the pieces are going to go and how they're going to design their home. Individually, they're going to have to complete different exit tickets, quizzes, things like that to show that they actually understand the concept of area and perimeter. And then publicly, they're going to present this either to the principal or dean of students and just explain kind of what they created. But then they're also each going to have to choose, I think I put it in there, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think I did one object in their home and then one room in their home that they have to demonstrate how they found the area and perimeter of each of those. So not just sharing their project and here's what we did, but then actually demonstrating their understanding of the calculations in front of the class. I did put in here, it's not necessarily something I would do with the group of students that I have in mind, but different options towards the end of the project, like to be able to build the project using something like Minecraft or Legos, and actually doing it more than just paper.
Right.
I think just with the way it's designed and how long I plan on it taking, right now I have it at about 2 weeks. With the kids I have in mind, something like that, as much fun as it would be, I think we would end up pushing our timeline. And, you know, I want to make sure that it's effective, but also we have time to keep moving on to the next topic and things that they're going to need. So that would be an option if we had time to go to it, but it would kind of depend on the students and how they're doing with the project. Other things that I plan on showing during it is getting to actually watch. I found a video for tiny homes so they could actually get to like go through it. It's a family that's looking for a home and going through and getting to tour and things like that, looking at floor plans. Yeah.
What grade level are the kids you're working with?
These kiddos are 4th graders, and they're reading probably at about a 1st grade level, and then math depends on the topic and subject area, could be anywhere from 2nd, maybe 3rd grade level stuff. So they've been by the time they will be doing this, they've been exposed to the concept of area and perimeter. It will be review and then adding on to that. So.
Any questions for Joy or comments? It's a little more challenging doing it in a resource room.
It is. As I sat here and thinking about it, and just even the reflections that I did in here, and even just trying to describe the kids, and a behavior could totally throw one day off. You know, 2 kids not getting along kids who don't understand something, and all of a sudden the project isn't as independent as I want it to be. And so that probably made it the most difficult, is just how much independence can I give them and how much are they going to need guided.
And a lot you're not going to know until you try it.
No.
Right? I'm sure you change. Do you actually plan on implementing this then?
I would not implement it yet this year.
Okay.
So it potentially could be in the future, but probably not this year.
Anyone have questions?
If you did implement it with your students, how many of them would be working together on it generally?
Well, right now the group is 4, so it would be 2 and 2. Depending on the day, sometimes the group is 4 and sometimes it's different. So.
Okay.
I see that Hannah has joined us. Hello. Hannah, everybody is just sharing a little bit about their PBL, the driving question, and the basic procedures and details, and then we're commenting or asking questions. Okay?
Awesome. Great, thanks.
Who have we not heard from yet?
I haven't gone yet. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. I do kindergarten, and my idea was, why are farms important? Why do we need farms? What can they help us with? So it's a 4-week PBL, a lot of it kind of introducing the various types of farms that are in Minnesota, learning a little bit about that, getting some scheduled time in the computer lab with the computer teacher to do some kindergarten internet research, which sounds frightening, I'll admit it. That's why it's going to be 4 weeks, just to double check. And I've even scheduled, like, on this day, the kids aren't going to do anything, and the teacher's just going to double check resources that they can use and help kind of guide them to resources. Eventually, the students are going to have to pick the farm that they want in groups of 3 to 5, explain what happens at their farm on a typical day and each season, because Minnesota's kind of fun with seasons, and maybe certain things change, maybe they don't. The grand public event is going to be a mock farmers market. So we're going to present it to the whole school, the families, and sell our products. We won't really have anything necessarily, but we'll have made maybe a keynote to present our information, explaining how our farms work. So simple, easy task for kindergartners. No problem. Not worried at all.
Do you plan on actually implementing it this year?
Not with this group that I have. I have a few that maybe should have been in preschool one more year. And I'm kind of new to the building, so I don't want to get that involved yet, but maybe next fall or next spring.
Okay. Comments or questions for Nellie? How many standards were you able to implement?
A lot. Mainly focused on social studies and ELA. Mainly with like the research, presenting information, learning how to read information and texts or on the internet, that sort of stuff. And then a lot of the actual like farming is with social studies. And I'm sure I'll find more with computer technology, but I didn't dive into that one yet.
All right, Annie, you're up.
Okay, so here in southeastern Pennsylvania, we have a really big problem. We've got the spotted lantern fly. It has no known predators. It came over in a shipping crate from China, from Southeast Asia, or China, came to Allentown, and it just exploded. No known predators. Praying mantis sometimes eat them. Wasps eat their dead bodies, but that's about it. They excrete stuff that molds everything and ruins farmers' crops. Our big deal is hops and grapes, and they're being totally ruined.
Oh, wow.
Right now, they're in the dormant state, so they are in egg sacs, and we can get rid of them. So the driving question is, how can we inform residents of Jenkintown and all of southeastern Pennsylvania the ways to get rid of this pest, and how can we enact these plans in our own community? I teach in a 0.6 square mile town, very small, 700 kids, grades kindergarten through 12, and this is going to be for 8th graders. And the main goal is to map the town. So we're going to map the school grounds and the trees. They kind of adhere themselves to a tree in like a mud-like format. So I'm going to have the kids go around. We have like up to 40 trees, I think, on the school grounds. And then I'm going to have them map their own, like where they live, and how many egg sacs do we see. And then we'll do a whole removal process. And in the meantime, they're doing research and deciding what their end product is going to be. It might be a website. It might be an informational brochure. It might be a video or some sort of slideshow to give people, for example, a tutorial step by step. How do we do this? How do we get rid of them in their egg form? How do we get rid of them in their adult form? What deterrents are there? And they will be giving each other feedback. They'll be starting by brainstorming individually, and then kind of finding at least one partner to bounce ideas off and work with. So the 2 kids who want to do a video will work together on the video, for example. They'll have like several kind of iterations of this end goal, because it is going to be shared not only with the school board, which meets multiple times a month, but also with the greater community, because this is truly impacting and it's spreading. It hasn't gotten farther than where we are in Pennsylvania, but it's kind of just like the stink bug. It's going to end up being everywhere if we don't stop it now. So it's like a legit problem, and
Right.
It actually is damaging livelihoods. So let's see. I think the only thing that I need to consider is developing some sort of eventual release form for publishing it like on social media. But we have a couple of college extension places in the two areas where we are going to be working that will help us kind of produce this in a way that and kind of disseminate it and get it out, as long as parents are okay with it. But for the most part, it's not going to be necessarily students featured in the brochure or whatever. It's just going to be their work. That's the only thing I really have to think about, I believe. Yeah.
Comments or questions?
I don't have any questions, but that sounds really awesome.
Trying to save you guys from this bug. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's super relatable, and it sounds like a great idea.
Thank you.
And it's a fairly new problem for your area, right?
Yeah.
So there hasn't been a lot of research on how to get rid of them.
Yes, absolutely. Like they're definitely starting that process and really trying to get people involved. Last year they did have some sort of like hackathon where they like had kids come together and try to make a website or something. But that was as far as it really went, and the problem's still happening, so it's still spreading. And in each egg sac, which is the size of your thumb, 50 of them can be in there. So
Wow.
we got to get rid of them sooner rather than later. So this is like a truly authentic livelihood changing problem. I went out to a tree one day. I'm a photography teacher as well. There were like maybe 200 on there, and we spent
one tree.
like adults, like alive ones covering the tree. It was nasty.
Wow.
So they're gross, and we want to get rid of them.
One of your students or your group might come up with like this amazing solution that they could get famous for.
I hope
That'd be
so.
awesome. You're going
I
to
hope so.
go viral, and then we're all going to say, "Oh, we know Annie Kelly."
That's definitely the goal, is to really spread the information, because there are so many people. Like I have a friend who saw one and thought, oh, it's so beautiful, I'm gonna, it jumped on me, and she was like, oh, I'm gonna save that. I'm like, no, kill it. Get rid of it. So yeah, there's a lot of misinformation, and they are really beautiful bugs, but they're not good for us. So
Anybody else want to share?
What age did you say that this was for?
8th grade. So like 13, 14 years old.
Cool. That's a good age for that project.
Right.
They're very excited about it.
Mhm.
I am going to implement it, but probably more toward like March, I think, because they're dormant until May. So they're in like the sacks until then. So we have a little bit of time, and it's getting rather cold. So,
Yeah.
but we are really going to do it, and they're excited.
I want to
I'm
hear
ass-
about it when you do.
Sure.
I'm assuming where you are, this problem is like the kids know about it. Is it news to them, or is this something that that's not news to them?
Overall, they know about it. Or they have a story with it. Oh, one jumped on me. Oh, I seen him on my tree. You know, they're more attracted to certain trees and stuff. But for the most part, I think that this year, like this school year, so starting in like August, September, is really the first time kids are really knowing about it in any
What is
capacity.
this bug called?
Spotted lanternfly.
I'm gonna
Check them out. They are very beautiful.
All right, can you say it one more time?
Spotted lanternfly.
Spotted.
For those of you who live in the Duluth area, you know the army worms, right? They come through every 7 years, and they
Yeah.
decimate the trees, and they'd be like you
Are they
mentioned.
these pretty red things? So you can't see. They're pretty
Yes.
red moth.
Yes,
They're not so pretty
Pretty
though
good.
in the real world.
that is correct.
Okay.
Army
I put a
worm.
link if you guys want to look. It's the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, and you can see a picture of the tree that's like totally covered with these things. So, and you can also see where they are currently spread. I'm in the bottom right-hand Montgomery Bucks area. If you click on the link.
Do they project at all, like how far they think it could spread beyond your community?
Yeah, I mean, so it started in Berks County, which is kind of right in the middle of this map of what's the problem, and it has been spreading slowly throughout it's been at least a couple of years, admittedly, that this has kind of been happening. It just hasn't spread. They have a projection that by like 2023 that it could be, everywhere. Are you guys familiar with the stink bug? Because it started in the same place, and then it got to California in a couple of years. So.
Wow.
It's the same kind of concept, but those aren't as harmful as they are just kind of gross. These things are literally like decimating farmlands and crops. So it's really bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
I will watch for it on the news.
Absolutely.
All right, Hannah, are you ready?
Yes, I am ready. All right, so for my project-based learning, I kind of went off an idea of something that happened in my community as well. So there's a boy who I believe is a like 4th grader in the town where I teach, and he had a traumatic brain injury a couple years ago, and his family was granted a Make-A-Wish, or he was granted a Make-A-Wish, and his family kind of helped him come up with this idea that he wanted to have an inclusive playground in the town. So he donated all of his funding that he got for his wish so that the town could build a playground for kids with all sorts of different needs, which is really cool. And they've held all these benefits for him and been raising a lot of money. And it kind of sparked the idea for me of, what would kids come up if we asked them what sort of play space does our town need? And so the hook is watching that video. A lot of kids in the community already know the student in particular and the family. And then after that, we are going to be reading a novel. And I have to look up the specific title here of my novel. It is called, sorry for the delay. It's called Born Just Right, and it's the story of a girl who's born without a limb and all of the different challenges that she faces every day. And so the book has 20 chapters. It will be a read aloud that I will read to the class. And then after that, the students are kind of filling out a thought log along the way. And then they do a Flipgrid video, which I don't know how many of you have used those before, but they actually they take a little video of themselves responding to a question, and then it just all gets posted on one forum page. And so the students are going to be
saying, what is a time where I have felt like different because of something about me? What did I do about it? What did other people do for me? So they can kind of respond to a couple different questions on that. And then after that, we end up doing a interview with a person either at our school or in town who has some sort of either physical disability or learning exceptionality. And I will either help set that up through our school with like the special education department, or if kids or parents know somebody that they personally want to interview, then they can do that themselves. And we develop the interview questions at school and everything. And then after the interview, students first write a letter to somebody in our community, like a local city council person, asking or kind of requesting what they think that our community needs specifically, and they develop their idea from the interview. And then they collaborate with another student and also include one of their ideas in their request letter. And all of this ties into some social studies learning too that we do at the very start of the year, where we learn about all the different roles of people at City Hall and everything. So we don't learn about that specifically in this PBL unit, but it does tie in some previous learning from the year, so kids kind of know what person exactly they want to write that letter to. And then after writing the letter, kind of depending on what different designs students want to add to an inclusive play space, kids get together in groups and they can create a model of what they want for that specific play space. So maybe they want to make the model out of clay, or maybe they want to make it like a drawing or a Google drawing, even if they can do it on the computer. The medium is up to them, but they come up with a plan as a group, do a little submit check thing with me so that I kind of know where their plan is headed. And then they create their model of this inclusive play space. And then at the end, on a very 4 weeks or so into the project, they have a little display day where people from the community and parents and everyone is invited to come. And we just have a big sort of multi-purpose room where people could come and view those projects. And then it gives students a chance to kind of tell about their project and practice some of those interview skills a little bit again, and FaceTime with people as well. And then at the very end, we'll do a little reflection just where students write about how they thought the overall project went. They write about if they think that they reached their goals of including other people. And then they can also have students respond to each other in that reflection as well. So, yeah.
Any questions? You weren't in the room yet, Hannah, but Michelle is doing a playground on her school property that's
awesome. Fun.
Incorporating a play area for kids of all needs.
Sure.
Maybe swap your plans.
Yeah. And I will message out that link too. There's a little news story about the boy in my community who used his Make-A-Wish for the inclusive playgrounds. So if any of you want to look that out, it's just it's a cute little 2 or 3 minute clip. So
it's a great hook, and again, like many of yours, so very authentic and relevant and real to what's going on in your communities. And do you plan to implement this year, Hannah?
I'm hoping to do it in the spring. The tough thing about 3rd grade in the spring is that we have MCAs, and so things always get, really busy around the end of April time. And if I push it to May, I don't want it to lose its authenticity and just to be like jam-packed in. Right. But I think I could at least do parts of it, maybe not reading the whole novel or doing the Flipgrid part of the video, but I'm sure I could show them the hook and have them do interviews and make a design with, collaboratively kind of introduce a couple steps this year and expand upon it as I go.
Mm-hmm. You include your community a lot in your plan.
Mm-hmm.
Behold.
Has everyone shared now?
Boss, it's Amazon Fire TV Cube with Alexa voice control.
What are we listening to? Oh, okay. I
That
want
may
to move on.
have been an ad on the news article that I
Got it.
sent out.
I didn't think it was mine. So in the last 15 minutes here, I want to just have everybody kind of pipe in and share about the semester and how it went for you, any frustrations that you had, or what you found worthwhile in the course, and the focus on PBL, and if you thought that was useful to you as a teacher. So just kind of share a little bit about your ups and downs.
Can I ask a question about the PBL first?
Sure.
How many resources would you like in the 12-point references and writing section? Like, how many references are you looking for?
No number. I just want to make sure that if you got ideas from somewhere else, that you cite them and reference them. So there's no minimum or maximum.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to make sure that you're giving credit to anybody you got ideas through, or any sort, or online sites or other.
Okay.
I can go first. Just taking this course and doing all the assignments and stuff really opened my eyes to how I am making my students think critically, and how good of a job I may or may not be doing, or thought I was doing. So it just kind of really opened my eyes to the importance of it. One frustration, and I wrote about this in my final eval, was kind of funny because it was at the beginning of the PBL when just asking you questions and not getting a direct response. Like I expected to get an answer, like just tell me what to do, or is this good or is this not? So kind of putting that critical thinking back on me kind of gave me the feeling that my students may feel too. So it was just kind of a good learning experience for me. Just having
Michelle, that was sort of my goal. I knew that for sometimes people would ask a question, they just wanted me to say, do this. I'm like, well, why don't you do some more research on that? And I was really trying to put you through a PBL, kind of what you're going to do with your students. And
yeah.
They will become frustrated sometimes too, because they're used to being told, just do this, and we're done. And they don't want to have all this gray area decision making, but
right.
the whole
Yep.
point of it, right?
And it did open my eyes, and it just it takes a lot off the teacher too.
Mm-hmm.
Teaching your students to think critically and solve their own problems,
yep.
and not always having to be the one to jump in. Like giving them that responsibility is good. It takes a lot of practice and time, but it's like raising your own kids. You want them to be able to figure things out on their own and not always have to run to mom and dad. But
right,
yeah, so it was a good learning experience for me.
Oh, good.
I'm kind of a similar thought here. I also liked that we had so many different options for the design of our project, and kind of personality wise speaking, like that was something that was great for me when you were like, oh, there isn't this one template that you have to use. I'm like, oh great, like I can make the lesson layout however I want it to look, and I can make the I can statements kind of organized however I want to. But I kind of have those organizational systems in my head, but for people that don't always think outside of the box so much, I think that it makes it kind of tricky for trying to get your ideas down without feeling like you're missing something, if that makes any sense.
Great.
Like I kind of have, I feel like I have like the angel and the devil on my shoulders, like, oh, I'm excited that this is open-ended, but also like I don't have somebody showing me exactly where to put these I can statements, so I don't know if I'm doing it wrong, sort of thing going on.
I really like the idea of PBL. I think that there's so many positives and value when it comes to learning. My struggle is not curriculum friendly, and when you have curriculum, especially new curriculum that your admin buys and spends thousands of dollars on, it doesn't necessarily go hand in hand. So I think a lot of it is trying to do what you're supposed to do, but finding a way to make it your own with a lot of those qualities about it, which I think can be done. And I think it's almost like a PBL experience as a teacher too, because you have to try to find a way to make it work, I guess, to the extent of what you're supposed. So you are following through where you're not going to get any backlash, but then trying to take a lot of those lessons of being able to be independent and think in a way that is more than just a yes no answer, and putting it onto your students. I think it's definitely a learning process, and I think that going forward, it just opens your mind to teaching, and I guess it's just not so like direct. It can be expanded. It's just I guess I'm just trying to like find a way to make it like that, but fit with what I'm supposed to be doing, if that makes any sense at all.
It does. Anybody else have a similar thought on that? And Ken, I think it was you mentioned the MCAs, right, in third grade. And
Yeah.
that's going to control the extent that you might do your PBL, because you have these outside expectations that you can't get away from. Like you said, Rebecca, you have to find a way to do it within those parameters and not shirk your duties, but still be true to the kids and do things it's worthwhile.
Yeah, and it's kind of frustrating because we have, for the most part, like my admin's really good about letting us kind of do our own thing. And they always like give us this message, like, there's so many wonderful things out there for you to try as a teacher, and open-ended and thinking all this. And then they're like, but we bought you this.
And
you
have
need
to use
to do
it.
this. It's like, well, okay, I guess you can't, I don't know. It's a little bit of mixed messages there.
Right.
I'd say just trying to find like small ways on a daily basis or a weekly basis to build in project-based learning, especially with math. A lot of kids just get used to the direct instruction of, I'll model an example, you'll practice it with your partners, and then you do some type of practice problem, and then we move on to a new idea. And when you ask students, because math always builds upon each other, so when students are asked to require that building upon each other and then apply it and usually struggle, it really does require critical thinking, and as a lot of people have said, it's uncomfortable for students, and it can even be uncomfortable for a teacher to have groups struggle for a significantly longer time than they're accustomed to.
We have a lot of math teachers in this section of the course. And I remember at the beginning being a little concerned about how is a PBL going to work in math. Do you feel like you found a way?
Yeah,
One thing I do, and I don't know if it's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, it's not necessarily PBL, but a lot of the times when we're answering a question, like, I don't necessarily give the answer, or I might put the question up and we'll talk about it, and I'll have a kid come up. Usually my student of the week will be the one that comes up on the smartboard and answers it. But then I try to get in the habit of asking if anyone else answered it a different way and let them come up and talk about it. And then I try to have the kids ask at least one or two questions, because I don't know, even as first graders, sometimes they surprise me, and just the way they think and how they get to the answer. There is a lot of time one way to get an answer. I guess I should say there's one answer, but there's more than one way to get there.
Right.
And I don't always teach, sometimes I might only teach one way. One way to get to the answer. So it's kind of nice when the kids can come up and give a different perspective. Mm-hmm. And plus they use language that's more, I guess, they're 6 and 7, so they talk like a 6 and 7-year-old. Sometimes I just speak without thinking that I'm using a word that somebody might not understand.
So Grant, you were mentioning in your math class, you feel like you're able to incorporate more of the critical thinking.
Yeah, really recalling prior knowledge, and I can't tell you how many times kids in geometry this year say, well, that's algebra. Why do we do that? And so and I think it's just the easiest way to teach math, but it's not always the best way, that we use that we kind of model it. So, okay, I know how to do it now. But asking students to really recall and critical think about things that they've learned in the past really does help students to acquire like a stronger understanding, as well as it does make you remember it better when you have to struggle compared to watching a teacher do it. You do an example problem and then you do some type of assignment and then you move on to a content that's related. But actually struggling and trying to figure out how to do it on your own is more meaningful and more memorable than just the traditional math lesson.
Mhm. Good.
I agree. I actually really enjoy that it's a form of making our kids struggle and reevaluate and reflect and try new things, because that's a really hard thing for some kids. And I know a lot of kids in my class, even this year, they try something new, they get frustrated, and they're like, "No, I don't care enough. I'm done with that." So it's a fun way to make them understand that as they're struggling, they're learning, and they can come up with something really cool in the end if they let themselves persevere through that.
I'd probably be the one person who says that I don't necessarily like that, the struggle through. My reasoning behind it is just the individuals that I sometimes work with. This year I happen to have a group of kiddos with more behavior needs. And so to allow that time to struggle usually means that things are not going to go well. Whether, somebody ends up being removed from the room or things like that. So I would say I am definitely less likely to let them struggle. I would say as I looked through, my PBL and stuff too, I set up a lot of times to check in and have them check in through exit slips or different things like that, questioning, asking questions, things like that I created to kind of help eliminate maybe a little bit of that struggle and frustration, so it doesn't turn into something unwanted in the classroom, I guess.
How was the pace of the course? Did you feel like the lessons were paced well, that they built toward each other? As you remember, I told you at the beginning that I redesigned it a bit in the summer and was kind of left it a little loosey-goosey just to kind of see how it would flow.
I thought it was paced well. As a person who's also working on a large portion of my action research project, I was a little worried starting a new position at a new school. There was a lot of things going on, but I thought everything was paced out well for me this semester, considering all of those other factors.
Okay, good.
I would agree. I mean, pretty much my project, I think, sounds like a lot of other people's projects are pretty much done, and that not everything was pushed to this last week, so that was really nice.
I tried to build in some time at the end, a good couple of weeks to just work on it.
Yeah.
Did you find the peer review process helpful?
Yes.
I really like the peer review process, and overall I like the document, like the peer review document. I think that it opened up the door for several conversations and questions to happen that I didn't always think about. So I had 2 peer review partners, and they were very helpful to ask a question here or make a clarification there that I probably, they don't know my topic. So it was cool that those questions were there to really guide that.
Right. Good. We just have 2 minutes left, so a couple things I want to point out. First of all, there are a couple things within your final unit plan you want to make sure are there. If I sent out the grading rubric via the announcements, and you got that probably late last week. Did you get a chance to open it? It's almost like a checklist where points for each of the different items within the PBL standards. So go through yourself and say, did I include that piece? Because I know what gets overlooked are the 2 things, the citations. And you only have to cite sources if you got an idea from somewhere else. It wasn't yours. You want to make sure you cite them, whether it's a rubric for the students, or it's a handout, or it's a website or what have you, and then have the reference page that lists the information. So anybody else who picked up your PBL could use it, but also understand where all the different elements came from. The other piece is there's a reflection within the PBL where you're going to write just a couple of paragraphs on the process of developing it, how the feedback went, revisions you made along the way, that kind of thing. And that's separate from the course reflection, which you're required to do every semester for all your courses. And that's something you get an email from the college, not from me, and do hopefully a very honest evaluation of the course and what I could do better in developing it for the next semester that I use it, or just good feedback if there was things that you found useful and helpful. So I want to make sure that you get to include all of those. So again, I call up the grading rubric from that announcement I sent you and make sure you look at it before you post your final. If you already posted and want to revise it, no problem. Don't worry about putting it in the Dropbox, just email it to me, okay? Do you have any final questions about the timeline for this week, what's due and when, or if you're including everything?
I have a quick question about the citing. So if you included like a rubric in your like appendix as an appendix,
yep.
What if you changed it? Should we still cite it?
You would cite it and say adapted from.
Perfect. Okay.
If you have literature books, if you're using, like one of the teachers last night is using a Magic Schoolhouse book, we'll put that in there. Anything at all, if you have some good resource books that you're using with the children about geometry or landscaping, what have you, just anything that you mention within your plan where somebody would say, what is that? Where'd that come from? Then give it a citation and a reference.
Want us to do that like on the appendix too, like reference where, like, I don't know if I necessarily put it in my plan. I might have said like worksheet 8-1 and then I attached it as an appendix. Then do you want me to cite exactly where that came from?
Yes. Where did you, unless you designed it yourself.
Okay.
Do you cite it like in the lesson plan, or do you write like adapted from whatever in the appendix where you attached it?
Well, you know what? Actually, it's good to do both of those things, because if somebody got a hold of just that, the handout, they wouldn't know where it had come from. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Well, we're 2 minutes over, and I want to be respectful of your time. So I will, say you may leave the meeting. If you want to stick around and ask me a specific question, I'll just stick around for 2 more minutes or so, okay? And I'll stop recording. But good work. You came a long way, I think, right?
Definitely.
Good. And I hope some of you actually get to implement it. I think you'll really find it worthwhile.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night and Merry Christmas.
You too.
Good night.
You too. Merry Christmas.